Okay, let's just go ahead because it's 10:30. We're ready to go with a really well-attended session. Thank you all for coming. And just to make sure you're in the right session, this is planting the seeds for a strong, hold on, it's a long title. Planting the seeds for a strong data management future, incorporating data management into college curriculums. So the premier venue for speaking about data management and education here. And so I'm just going to go through, sort of our agenda here. First, we're going to start out with Abby Benson. Sorry, by the way, I'm Steve Formel from USGS. I should have said that. Abby's going to give a little intro why we put the session together. And then we're going to offer some provocations. So some short talks to get the juices flowing, get people debating, what's going to work, what's not going to work, what ideas do we have. And then we're going to have a 30-minute breakout where we jump into working groups and just discuss this. And then 15 minutes to wrap it up and a Slido poll to sort of pull together some of our ideas. So, please sign into the notes document like you've been doing in all the sessions. And with that, I'll hand it over to Abby.
All right. I have to bend it down because I'm very short. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Really excited that y'all could join us. And so this session sort of started last year's ESIP. I hosted an unconference because it just feels like we really need to have undergrad college students, undergrad, graduate level, coming out with the skills of knowing about data standards, that they exist, knowing that metadata is a thing, how to manage their data well. These, to me, seem like really fundamental skills that folks are just not learning in their college careers. So we started out there and then we came here to kind of expand on it. We want to kind of try to figure out some actions that we can take and pull those together, maybe some low-hanging fruit that this community could take back to their organizations and try to implement to try to get this going. We gotta build the bridge from, if you're only learning about these things once you're on the job, then it's too late. We need to start it sooner. So, and this is because we are seeing, like NIH is requiring data management plans and, this is needed. And the other thing that's really important to me is that it's not a separate course. It's not something that you're doing separately from everything you're learning, but it's integrated into your field biology course. So when you're going out and you're collecting data, you're kind of learning about how to manage it then, similar to how you learn how to manage your field notes or things like that. It's a fundamental piece of many different disciplines, so it should be integrated in with those. So that's sort of the reason, the idea for this session, and I'm so happy you all are here and excited about this with us. So from there, I will turn it back over to Steve.
Okay, thank you, Abby. So our first provocation is Wade Bishop from University of Tennessee. So come on up, Wade. That was fast. Let's get you set up now.
Yeah. Sweet. Okay.
That one, sorry.
That was it.
That was it. All right, let's see. There we go.
Hi, everybody. I guess I can use this time to say just thank you to ESIP. I have a whole slide on thank you, but some of the thing I'm talking about today is the same problem, but it's not a new problem. So we've been fortunate to study it for a while. My name is again Wade Bishop, professor at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Yeah, we're all one size fits all. Okay, you didn't miss anything. So yes, thank you to the ESIP community for I haven't been by in person in a long time, but it's great to report back. My usual joke is if you have trouble sleeping, there's like stuff to read about all of this. But then I realized oh, it's actually about you all. So maybe it would be interesting to see what's changed. Some of these studies are 5 years ago, 3 years ago. So I'm actually curious, what is the half-life of the knowledge, skills, and abilities of this community, and what does need to change? Because at least when I'm teaching my classes, I want to make sure whatever students are learning are ready for the job today, not whatever it was a decade ago. And then I forgot that I presented virtually last year and ended with this quote. So I was like, okay. So maybe it hasn't been that long. Emphasis on soft skills training through a variety of curricular models can help prepare students for the workforce by immersing them in the associated tasks of data management and familiarizing them with allied professionals. So it's just a fancy way of saying, like, I'm in a college of communication and information, and it's not just my biases. Everyone I talked to, interviewed over the years, says the most important thing is what we all do great here is like collaborate and communicate and sort of know what's going on. Those outreach pieces, keeping up with awareness. I'm realizing I don't have that much time. I also want to mention that the university always had these classes and we codified them into a research data management certificate now. They won't let me use this cool logo, but I still use it in talks. So it's not university approved, the RDMC. So our students will take a data management course and then select a course specifically on metadata, digital curation, and one of the others related to geospatial technologies or databases. So I know a lot of alum in the room that took some of these courses, but now students can actually finish a whole other certificate. We're not the only one. There's a large market for people interested in these skills, not just in research data, but all data management. And that's my provocation that I'll get to in a minute. Our panel's charge was to ensure students are sufficiently adept at data management, but as an instructor, other than just doing job analysis of different types of librarians and also our science data managers, that's my way of doing it. Saying, like, what do people do? What do you all need to know? And then infuse that into the program learning outcomes of our classes. But it'd be great if anyone wants to share, maybe in some of the small groups, if there's already like a body of knowledge we can point to from other parts of data science, information science, all of the domains. And just, I'd like to hear more about the awareness of what other certificate programs are out there, because they're all probably different flavors. And depending on what department, unit, school, continuing education, formal, informal, what does that look like? But it'd be nice to have, like, at least for me, a body of knowledge, kind of like how geographic information science has one, with, hey, these are the things that you need to know, and make sure they're all appearing in a curriculum over time, instead of just professors talking about, you know, what's interesting to them. That's not always that useful. So to review I guess I have plenty of time. So last year I was sharing what I found on the survey validation. It's one of the papers I mentioned earlier. But basically looking at the communication tasks, collaboration tasks, outreach, data-specific tasks, research tasks, teaching and learning tasks, and also how often that happens in your job, as well as any software, programming languages, and tools that you all use. So what does that mean? Is that I interviewed people, and these are the things that they said they needed to do every day, skills they needed to have, and how to sort of map that out to stuff that we could actually teach. And then from the interviews, I did a survey of the ESIP community. So thanks again for everyone who participated in that a few years ago. And it's not surprising at all. These are things probably most people in this room do weekly, monthly at the least. Just to talk to other people they're working with. That's not surprising. Collaborating, connecting with individuals, discussing projects and tasks. This is like the whole day of meetings, right? It's kind of all captured in that kind of stuff. There's also a lot of outreach. Obviously, we're all, at least the ones here and online, fortunate to be a part of this community and keep sharing and knowledge transfer that happens in ESIP and plenty of other conferences and events. So it's another part of the job, right? How do you teach someone how to do that, though? It's kind of an experiential learning thing. And a lot of people still do plenty of teaching and learning within their own, institutions, whatever it is, training other people, train the trainer, one-on-one instruction. And as you can see, some folks are also teaching 4-credit courses in whatever capacity. The research task also won't surprise you. Data management plan, publishing data. Some people still obviously publishing articles, other information objects. And then there's plenty of the data specific tests, which is always fun for me to come through here and update my own slide and curriculum and say like, okay, what are people talking about now? What are some of the new tools and workflows and all this, the great things in the sessions over the last couple of days. But put more simply, finding data, creating metadata, answering questions, getting things into a repository, managing a repository, the quality assurance, quality control of data and metadata. So and all the great visualizations too. Again, this is from 2020, so that's a while ago now. I'm not sure when to update this, but hopefully it's still pretty consistent that people need to know Python and R and all kinds of other long scripting. And here are the tools people mentioned. So again, probably not that surprising, RStudio and Jupyter and NetCDF, probably a few more, but that's the long tail. It's tough when teaching technology since things are changing all the time, but there's still a core that doesn't really move as fast. But just in brief summary, before my provocation, people do metadata creation and standards. That's a common responsibility. Handling data resources, cleaning data, all the PI wrangling and stuff that people talk about takes a lot of time. You're dealing with people and trying to get the data, in a fair way, a care way, whatever way you're doing it, as open as possible, or as necessary. The tools used in managing data are diverse. So needs to be a dexterity between tools and platforms. So that's what makes creating curriculum tough. Like, how do you say, oh, I just need this? No, there's like some core probably. And then wherever you are, there's still learning on the job. That's inevitable. Some kind of apprenticeship is going to happen, which is great because a lot of our students do a practicum at a lot of your institutions and they get great real world experience there and talk the talk, and then start to walk the walk, I guess. So my survey findings basically reinforce that general technical competencies are key. What should those be? And then my provocation is insane, but accreditation. So right now our graduate program is only accredited by the American Library Association. And I see former students, alum in the room and thinking like, this is not a library. You guys are nowhere near that. And a lot of the knowledge, skills, and abilities are quite relevant. If you're doing knowledge organization, working on information retrieval systems, all the databases, to me, it crosswalks. But if there's so much proliferation of different data management certificates and trainings out there, is there some kind of stamp assessment, something that say like there's consistency and value? So maybe that doesn't matter because our brand seems to be working. Students keep getting hired and that's great. Hopefully they're having wonderful careers. I think so. Some smiles, some nods. But that's just one institution. I think it'd be nice if there was a body of knowledge and some more consistency. So when you do hire someone from somewhere, whether it's an information school or another discipline, that you know what you're getting. And I don't know what that looks like. It can be a headache for someone else, but it's just a provocation, right? It doesn't even have to happen, it just has to start a conversation. So that was my time. And I guess we move on to the next one. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you so much, Wade. I feel provoked. So let's see. All right, so next up we have Mike Gravina, who unfortunately couldn't be with us. Mike is from the Bird Polar Research Station with Ohio State University, and he sent us a recording. So let me get that set up here. Sorry, give me 1 second.
My name is Mike Gravina, and I work at the Ohio State University in the Bird Polar and Climate Research Center. BIRD focuses on supporting research in polar and climate science, and the outreach group, which I'm a part of, works to develop public engagement with that science. In particular, I'm in charge of a team within the BIRD outreach group called GeoDataBiz. The team is largely composed of student developers who work together to build web applications that facilitate public engagement with polar and climate science topics. So I'm going to talk about the management of a particular kind of data we deal with a lot, code, specifically website code stored in code repositories. So our GeoDataViz team has two missions that have to coexist. We build web applications that present information about polar, climate, and weather science for the general public. But BIRD is also a teaching center, so we have a responsibility to educate our undergraduate students in code development, the ecosystem of tools surrounding development, accessible design, science communication principles, and so on. Ideally, these two missions would support each other, but that requires us to overcome challenges that come from student developers. Our students come in with a wide variety of aptitudes from both programming itself and code and data management. They also tend to turn over quickly, so it can be difficult to build up a lasting pool of expertise. These challenges have actually motivated us to rethink our approach and to work on building a robust, adaptive system that can accommodate students of many skill levels and give them concrete benefits to their own development as programmers, scientists, and communicators, all while contributing to the sustainable improvement of our center's projects and processes. So what does that mean in practice? Well, we take a two-pronged approach to building a system that can meet students where they are skill-wise, while also supporting the outreach work of our center. First, we've rethought our ecosystem of programming tools so it would be readily accessible to developers, regardless of the depth of their expertise. And second, we worked on developing best practices for sustainable team-driven code development and management, and then teaching those practices. So the programming ecosystem prong of our approach has lots of parts. First is choosing the right quote-unquote tech stack if you're able to choose. It's probably less important which specific development frameworks we use, and more important to actually pick some common set of development frameworks and then use them consistently to develop familiarity and expertise. In our case, we've landed on SvelteKit as our main framework because it's modular, easy to learn, scales well, comes with a number of error checkers, and has native support for accessibility features. It's even better with TypeScript, catching many errors that could cause trouble for less experienced programmers. The next most important thing is revision control. We use Git for this, and we take advantage of features like forks and submodules that allow us to build up a repertoire of well-understood reusable components so we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. We also avoid unnecessary dependencies since they make the code more complex and opaque. And we use open source dependencies whenever we can and contribute our projects as open source software for others to use. Finally, we try to embed best practices in the code itself. We make use of IDE tools like code linters, automatic error checkers, and accessibility testing. We will also work to establish consistent design patterns and conventions and then implement them repeatedly in reusable code, giving student developers exposure to best practices as they're working. Altogether, we try to shape our development ecosystem with a mind towards ease of use, reliability, and sustainability. And all this has helped us enormously. But the development environment itself can't do all the work, which is why we've also worked to develop transparent and consistent communication practices around code and programming methods. A lot of this has to do with rejecting this concept of self-documenting code. Yeah, we absolutely try to write code cleanly and according to best design patterns. But we also set aside dedicated time for writing user protocols, readmes, and lots of in-code commentary in plain, non-technical language. And we set expectations about what information needs to be present to ensure that a project can be sustainably used as our staff and students turn over. I've talked a lot so far about static tools and practices that help us develop our outreach products with students of all skill levels, but a lot of what we do actually also involves dynamically tailoring our attention and mentorship to individual student developers. So right from the start, we set up individual development plans with each student, and we learn about their interests and talents. And as time goes on, we try to find ways to employ their time that dovetails with those interests and strengths. We also recognize that communication and education don't just flow in one direction. Students can teach us too. So we try and encourage them to participate actively in all the strategic and design discussions for projects that they're on. And we let them take the lead in researching their approach to problems if they want to. And at all levels, students are authoring documentation to help the next custodians of the code. We also try to set up peer-to-peer teaching opportunities. We'll connect students who are slightly different skill levels and the same skills, or have complementary skills that they can teach to each other, like front-end to back-end knowledge, JavaScript versus Python, design knowledge versus topic knowledge, and so on. And these sessions may eventually develop into regular meetings run by the student pairs autonomously with periodic check-ins with the supervisor like myself. All right, so I want to show a few of the products that we've developed using this approach. First of all is Fluid Earth. This application was based on the huge initiative that was shown by one of our students to take an obsolescent and poorly documented set of code and rebuild it according to best modern standards. And this is a prime example of a project that was really driven by the students' own passion. And not only did this produce one of our center's most used products, but it also helped to set coding standards and practices that our entire team still uses today. And then after that, there's the Ohio State Weather Dashboard and the Ohio Precipitation Tool, two interrelated sites. And these involve more of my own direct participation as a coder, about 50-50 with one student. And we realized that the two projects were very similar. So we strategized ahead of time ways that we could build a common foundational architecture that could then be applied across these two different contexts and would also be flexible enough to be used for other projects in the future. And this shared foundation makes use of branching Git repositories and submodules, and it has accessibility features and checkers built right into it. And the student was absolutely instrumental in the decisions about design and strategy for this site. And honestly, we were really pleased with the result. So our particular case won't be the same as others. For example, Bird's outreach group is fundamentally built around student developers, so issues with skill level and consistency across time are foundational to our approach. But I do think that some of the lessons we learned are generally applicable wherever web code needs to be managed collectively by a team. Again, I'll emphasize the benefits of picking a web tech stack that works for you and getting familiar with it, and also getting to know revision control systems very well, and building a culture of thorough communication around code. I also mentioned two other considerations. First, our projects at Bird are grant-based, meaning bounded project scopes and finite blocks of time. And that makes it hard for us to build an integrated ecosystem that fosters sustainable development, future-oriented thinking. So more and more, we're trying to build in line items to our budget for building lasting and transparent code infrastructure and practices beyond the projects themselves. And then the second consideration is that we really observed a lack of institutional support for these bigger picture efforts related to code management. So we've tried as much as possible to reach out and build bridges with other groups who have similar missions in order to share tips and resources. And I recommend having conversations with others in your own community to see about building those kind of support networks. That's it. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, I encourage you to visit our website at bird.osu.edu or email me directly at gravina.2@osu.edu.
Hey. Just clean up my space here a little bit. All righty, so I have to remind myself. Next up, we have, is it you, Stace? All right, Stace Beaulieu from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute. And I think I have you set up here in just 1 second. And that's the one we want to share. All right. Almost there. All right, take it away.
All right, wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining. I'm Stace from Woods Hole Oceanographic, and this is such a perfect order to this session because we wanted to show an exemplar example of a formal learning opportunity, and Wade showed us the program at his university. And then we wanted an exemplar example of an informal learning opportunity, and Mike showed us that through the coding program at Ohio State. And so I'm in a little institution, Woods Hole Oceanographic. I guess it's the biggest oceanographic institution in the US, but it's still a small place. And we have a graduate student program affiliated with MIT, But we don't have undergrad students. We sponsor undergraduate student researchers and guest students. But I just want to say, like, we're in between. We don't have exemplar programs, okay? But this is just where we're at. And I just wanted to show you a couple examples of what we are doing. And then my provocations are to help us get into the working group discussions where we're going to start the Slido, right? So at Woods Hole Oceanographic, for the past 10 or 15 years, we've been trying to infiltrate. That's what we call it, because we have limited support, limited funding to do these kind of educational opportunities. So we've been doing informal trainings by becoming a Carpentries member and offering software Carpentries workshops. So go Carrie Jordan for our plenary speaker earlier in the week. And we also designed our own, thank you for having her. We designed our own data science training camp that we tailored to the oceanographic community. And if Danny Kincaid is in the room, Danny and I, oh, and Audrey is in the room. Audrey helped develop those materials as well. So we offer these learning opportunities, not just to students, but also to employees and staff. So we involve information services, librarians such as Audrey, and our oceanographers. All together, we have had undergrads and senior scientists in the same room learning together. Danny doesn't know this yet, but I'm announcing it here. We just got our formal course approved, which is a miracle. And the formal course is called Data Savvy Oceanographer. It will be offered in spring semester and focusing mainly on research data management, but I really do try to get to coding practices for reproducibility. And we offer a weekly office hour and kind of sponsor community of practice, or foster that. Okay, so how do I advance? Okay, we wanted to point out that some of the materials that we use, we have basically grabbed from ESIP's Data Management Training Clearinghouse. And we also put our HUI training camp into that clearinghouse. We found it to be very useful. And by the way, I am also using it in a deep ocean informal opportunity that I'm offering, because you find stuff from all other countries in that clearinghouse as well. Okay, so here's what I think. These would be my bullet points if I get a slide, to enter into. This is what I think can work. I have vetted this with some people at HUI, but it is my opinion. And so I think Abby might agree with me on the first one, which is incorporating some data management practices into undergraduate laboratories, and if they do field studies. And in fact, I do that with my research experiences for undergrads. I have them, learn a lot of practices that I do in my daily life, like Wade was showing us in his slides. For grad students, I'm going to point to the community fellows produced a graduate student roadmap, and it's called What I Wished I Learned in Grad School. It's online. Hopefully you can access these slides, grab the link. So during the 5 or so years of grad school, you might want to introduce foundational practices informally up front, and then have more formal, like discipline-specific stuff going on later in the program. So they get a base, and then they get like real skills to be able to publish data when they're finishing their degree. And finally, building the community is my third bullet. By involving the librarians and information services people with the students, they not only gain the practices, but they also see future career opportunities. That's all.
All right, thank you, Stace. Okay, our last provocateur is the very provocative Steve Diggs from University of California. And I'll get you set up here, Steve, and take it away. Forget, how do you do this? Sorry. Are you Google Slides guy?
Yeah, presenter view.
Presenter view, okay.
No, or get rid of that little other screen.
Get rid of this guy.
Might, yeah. Oh,
Okay,
good.
okay, let me just go to share. All right.
Let's see if it works. So I've bet with Abby that I'm not going to fall on my face with these slides. Let's see what happens. So no title slide. I think you guys know me. I'm Steve Diggs, University of California. And it's a very interesting little story I wanted to tell about myself getting to the point where I'm teaching. Oh, hey, at home people. So I started out like most of us as some sort of nerd, working on tearing up my mother's house. Exploring things, and that led me at some point to go to Antarctica and do the same thing. And then I had the brilliant idea to join the CoData RDA summer school as one of their teachers teaching Unix and research data management. And it wasn't long until I started seeing people in developing countries not having the skill set. And we had this big funded effort to do that. And we thought, well, why don't we bring it back home to the US, because there's a dearth of knowledge here as well. And so I've been all over the world teaching research data management, and it's time to bring it home. So we've gone from the very structured to the great example of teaching through software, through Stace, who's actually made great inroads. And I know that it shaved years off the end of her life to do that. To here where I'm an outsider coming into the institution where I worked for 30 years and reintroducing these concepts. One of these days I'm going to be able to advance these slides. All right, so I'm not going to play the movie, but if you raise your hand if you know what this is about. Yeah, so Wade and I just had this conversation where we can't believe we're still here. We are still here. And if you haven't seen it, it's the Data Bears. It's pretty funny. It was made in the day where you could make your own movie about it. And they're like, oh, that column it's in the paper, and you should know what X is because you're in the right field. And oh, I don't know where that is because it's on a USB drive that's stuck in the drawer and the graduate student went back to China. And so we all know this story, right? This is how data actually works. Well, knowing this and hearing this, working directly with grad students at Scripps, and having it validated both in a paper in Nature, I think you guys know about this, the longer the time between the observation and the time you go to get the data, the lower the probability that you'll find the original data for reproducibility. And then there was a study by the Belmont Forum that really backed this up, that researchers spent 80%, up to 80% of their time wrangling data, not doing science, but all the stuff around it. We've normalized this overhead in all of our R1 and non-R1 institutions. So the chancellor of the university where I used to be employed used to say, where's my money going? We've invested over, $1.2 billion in our library system, and we should have these resources. What most people think of is data science. What we're talking about here is not data science. It's the basic skills to the point where you can get to data science. If you can't take a CSV file and manipulate it, if you can't find data, if people aren't putting data into repositories, good luck doing data science. Good luck having training data sets for AI. So the institutions that fund us have these high-level buzzwords. We want to do AI, we want to do big data. I mean, pick your decade, right? But on the ground, we see the graduate students not having the basic skills to even get there. I know poop is a funny word. Adolescents, get it out of your system. But this was one of the graduate classes they teach at Scripps, which is an experiment design class. And the students in the class actually get ship time, which is 40 grand a day. So it's not a small thing. And they go out and they make some observation in the California Bight. And I was talking with Matthew Alford, the professor for the class, over coffee. He says, hey, I want you to come and talk about what you do. And I said, where do your data go after the students put the instruments in the water and they do their experiment? He goes, I never thought about that. 14 years they've taught this class. 14 years the data went over the side of the boat. So I came in and I said, well, what I'll do is I will sit in the class from day one and I will come to every single class. So I know exactly what you guys are talking about. When it's time for me to lecture, I will speak to them in the language that they're used to. And that's what we did. And we had some very rousing discussions. What you see here, if you can't read it, is all of the observations they were going to make, the type of instrument, the frequency, the data output, and where does it go? And every time, for every column, they were like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about that. What this did was this is a very informal data management plan. And it helped them to organize their thinking before they ever went out to sea. And this was all new to all of Scripps. So it's not just here in the US are not at our institutions. I just spent 2 weeks in Sri Lanka, and I don't know if Eli is still here, but we're doing much the same thing. There was I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. There was a container vessel going into Colombo, Sri Lanka. Colombo, Sri Lanka is one of the largest ports in the world. The container vessel was coming in. The manifest didn't read right. Nitric acid spilled, ship caught on fire. Anybody been to sea? What's the worst thing? Fire. Got the crew off. In the process of salvaging the vessel, they dumped over 50 billion plastic particles used in that was being shipped for manufacturing. Everything that saw it in the water ate it and died for 500 square kilometers. Ruined their ecosystem. Colombo's a beautiful place. Ruined their fishing industry. It's primarily maritime economy. Asian Development Bank is the underwriter, could not make them whole. They put it out for competitive bid. Scripps went up against the Chinese government. We won, and we sent 4 people, including myself, to Sri Lanka for 2 weeks to teach exactly this, research data management. Same thing I'm teaching to the Scripps students, integrated into their data analysis class, which I just taught again. I'm teaching abroad. So around the world, we're seeing scientists still training the same thing. It's not a US problem without the basic skills. So where are we going to teach these basic skills? This is the oversimplified version of what most people think of with a spill. Oh, there's something that goes in the water and I have to look at it. One of the guys, Chris Reddy, who is an oil spill specialist, brought in all of these other factors: incoming long wave radiation, seasonality, things you don't think about when you're trying to mitigate an oil spill. All of these things we had to teach to the Sri Lankans, and I'm thinking, we don't even know this in the US either. So this type of structure can be brought back to this country. That's what this session is about. So that's my provocation, is if we're teaching these things abroad, when somebody pays us to go abroad and teach this for 2 weeks, shouldn't we be doing that here? And shouldn't we be the leaders around the world in teaching our people? I mean, we know that people from other countries send their people to US institutions to get the best training. And yet in some ways we're following and not leading. So this is my provocation. This is from an actual ESIP meeting, Funding Friday. Hope you all come to Funding Friday tonight. And this was the No Fair movement. And I know you can't read this, but he says, it took years to create. It should take years to use. You are a user at you're a big researcher. Why waste time on metadata? Speed is of the essence. Don't use CSV, code it in Fortran, that kind of thing. The difference is this guy knows, and he's making fun of it. The not funny part is many people don't understand this because they don't know enough to make it funny. So the provocation is, let's all educate up, level up, and skill up to the point where this becomes funny again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Steve. All right, y'all. So now this might take a second to organize, but what we're going to do is break out into working groups. So let's aim for 5-ish people, just so we can have a good conversation. I'm going to post a Google slide here that includes a QR code. Let me move this guy. There we go. Okay, so this QR code will take you to these Google slides. And then Abby, I forget, is it linked in our notes also?
It should be, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so please, self-organize into a group of about 5-ish people. And what we'd like you to do is try to come up with 2 or 3 action items that your group might take, and it can be in response to these provocations or from your own ideas. But basically, if there was no resource limits or other restrictions, what concrete actions would you take to ensure undergraduate and graduate students graduated with the necessary data management skills that have just been, discussed? So let's take a few minutes and get together, and then we'll come back together in about 30 minutes and have 15 minutes to do a little discussion and wrap it up. All right, and go.
Yeah, any questions on what we're doing?
And sorry, for our online folks, we're just doing one room, right? Yeah, we're going to do a single room where you all can have that same discussion, and there's a slide for you on the Google slides where you can put your results. If I close that window, we want to close the breakout. Okay. So 1 more minute kind of thing.
Wait until they're back.
Oh, and then say 1 more minute. No. Okay. Yep.
I just wanted to wait until the breakout people are back. Looks like
Okay.
they're all back.
Okay, everybody, wrap it up. Okay, return to your normally scheduled program. All right, no more provocation. All right, thanks everybody for coming back with us. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is Abby's going to work on getting these bullet points from the slides into a Slido, so we can sort of so we can try to rank them and start thinking about where to go from there. But while that's happening, Stace and Steve are going to I guess sort of lead a little discussion, a little Q&A. Is that about right?
Oh, I was hoping we would actually display the slides as Abby was copying, so we get a preview.
Yeah,
We're having to vote.
we can definitely do that. Okay,
We have a slide of code. We do.
that's right. You were supposed to, yeah.
That's right. I know it because I have to copy them in now.
Okay, well,
I don't know if it's gonna show live because I have to put them in the ranking poll. I can show my screen, it's fine. You guys can watch me go back and forth. I'll be. Or you can watch me as I'm highlighting in here. Maybe,
okay,
would that work? So I'm highlighting as I go to like pull things in.
sure. I'm not sure if it'll show up if I
But
do.
you will get the slide of code. Slide of 3, like should make sure just sit there. I don't think there's a way to do, because I'm using the ranking poll. And so, yeah.
This is up if you want to.
Yes, thank you. Sorry for the.
No worries. Abby will let us know how she's going. And Steve, come on up, come on up.
But we.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't even know where in the room group 1 was, but thanks group 1. Awesome, great. So I'm gonna just take a look here and it looks like group 1 has, I'm gonna interpret this as ranking these, like you've already ranked number 1 and 2 here. Steve is handing off the MC
This is terrifying.
to
All right.
Matt. Matt, what's your number 2 here from group 1?
So we came up with a couple different ideas. We've ranked our top 2 in the top. The first one is to send data managers to teacher conferences. So we keep talking about how we need to get teachers at data management conferences, but we don't go the other way. So trying to bring that, kind of flip the storyline and really empower the teachers to assess how they can get data management into their curriculums. Like not come in and say, this is how you should do it, but then these are the things that we recommend talking about. How would that fit best within the existing curriculum? And then the second point is freshman summer workshop. So really trying to grasp onto the inspiration that our starting undergraduates have, a lot of the energy that they have, and trying to find ways to harness that energy into developing aha moments with data management. So if they're going into scientific fields, really have those opportunities to talk about data management and things like that.
Great. Thanks, group 1. So if you want to know, the teacher workshop is happening right next door, and we had some data literacy presentations earlier this morning and pedagogy on how to help students with data. And I love the idea of the freshman summer workshop. Just in general, I remember reading a book right before my freshman orientation. What if they had given me a data set to work with? Hey, all right, group 2. Where were you in the room? All right, group 2. We have one big bullet here.
John Ralph, NCEI. I've been given the microphone here. So we sort of, well, I'm going to use the word integrated. We sort of integrated all of our ideas into an integrated statement, which says basically what you can read up there. But the point was that it was an integrated approach that we would recommend within the context of science to make sure that the students learn data management approaches, but also could feed back into the loop so that we made sure the curriculum would keep up with changes in the data management environment. But we had some other thoughts, how does all of this question address the publishing and repository workflows? Because there was a nice session yesterday about the friction there. So that's basically what we have. So thanks.
That's wonderful. And I'm betting Wade is really responding to that concept of the feedback loop put in there. Oh, we stole. Oh.
All right.
Oh, it sounds like we're ready. Okay, how do we post the Slido link?
I'm going to bring it up.
We have to stop sharing.
Okay, I'll let you charge.
You can. Okay. You good to go, Abby?
I'm getting there. All right. There it is. All right. Okay. Maybe I should get the mic. All right, great. I don't know if everyone's done a ranking poll in Slido before, but basically I put the first two that were in everyone's slides up in here, and you're just gonna rank them. And at the end, we'll kind of get a sense of what everyone sees in the room thinks is going to be the most valuable to tackle or like action to take. So I'm going to be quiet because I hate it when people talk while I'm trying to do something. Do you rank them all or just like, I don't think you have to rank them all, but I don't know. Oh, okay. But you can rank them all. Yeah, tell me what happens. I'm curious. You don't have to rank them all. Okay, great.
And I think if you hit submit, you can actually go back and edit your response if you're not happy with it.
It's fun.
The bottom, he's excited.
Yeah, you could send it to the bottom.
Oh, he's saying for the ones that are not.
It's in my Slido. It's in my Slido account, so I'll have them. Yeah. That's how I am. It's mine, you can't have it.
I see a lot of people are still ranking, so we'll give you another 2 or 3 more minutes.
Yeah, it's like we talked there once.
Okay, is that pretty good?
Yeah. So.
Okay, Slido's saying nobody's still ranking. Is there anybody who needs more time? Oh, see, then maybe they have to be actively doing stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
Let's see, what do we have?
Okay.
This amazing. Thank you for your participation. And can I, does this like scroll down?
One thing before you get into it.
It's like I scrolled too far. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Also an important thing, if you didn't sign in on the notes document via Sketch, please do that. That helps us understand who is here and where these opinions came from. So.
I mean, I'm guessing that many of you can read the same thing that I'm reading here, but I'm just, I kind of wanted to see how the bars lined up, right? And it's so big.
If I stop the poll,
Oh, I see. It's coming from you.
it is coming from.
Ah. Is there any way to show more of like the overall kind of like the plot of the results? Analytics.
I don't think it's my screen doing it. Sorry, we're learning on the fly here. Nope, that can't help. Any Slido aficionados. Oh, show you all poll results. No, that's all my polls.
I could see it on my own laptop screen.
New result. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, but it's still kind of there.
That's good. We got like the top 4 or so there. Great. Wonderful. So I would actually invite Abby and Steve. How will we be using these results? I know we'll be, I mean, we're crossing working groups here. We're not a working group, right? So we just threw out this session. So yeah, how can we promote these results?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. What I was hoping is that we would have these ideas because, I think if this was an easy thing to do, it would be done. So, coming together, there's so many great minds here in the room, that we would pull these together and this would be a starting point for maybe a new cluster or maybe an existing cluster that might want to take it on, but something that they can work from. And Steve made a suggestion while we were sitting up here of maybe turning this into a paper or a blog post or something. So perhaps that's a direction we could take, but, I was really hoping this would create some sort of actions that, you all could take back to your institutions and implement them. So hopefully you're seeing that. Hopefully you have ideas of things that you want to do based on this. But yeah, this will basically I wanted to create a resource. So yeah, Alexis, is there a mic?
Oh.
How about now? Perfect. I think I know quite a few of you, but I wanted to plug after Abby gave a good opening that the Data Stewardship Committee is moving towards more and more educational resources as part of our goal. So please, if you're interested in being part of the Data Stewardship Committee and attending our meetings, you are all welcome. And we would love to talk more about what this might look like, integrating some tools that are already existing in the DMTC. The other piece I wanted to point out, given our guest in the room from the Carpentries, is that there is an existing FAIR data and software curriculum that's currently has no maintainers. And I think would be a really great place to build some of these educational resources that could be shared across faculty that maybe don't have the skills to integrate this into their coursework directly without necessarily some help.
Douglas?
There's also a place called Academic Data Science Alliance. So that would be a good place for groups to, because that's a consortium of universities where that can be a great place to highlighting the needs of data management training. Just because I was looking at NC State University's Data Science Academy, nothing mentioning about data management. It's all about introduction to R, to Python, in network analysis, in all different scientific domains, but there's nothing really about data science, data management. So I have action items talking with that director to see what's going on there and what can be added there. So
Awesome.
Thank you, Douglas. Nancy?
Thanks, Nancy Hobel-Heinrich. There is an RDA working group on data stewardship that is very closely aligned to this. It's not only about research data management, and it sort of reflects somewhat of a European difference between what we're talking about and they're doing. But they just released an initial report that did a literature review of what are requirements for data management across, in the literature. That would be a good report for us to look at maybe in data stewardship, but to see how it applies to our domains here as well. That would be a good place to start. And also, if it looks like it's something that would work, participate, be somebody, people get on that group and meet and involve ourselves in the discussion, because a lot of them are just because of time. Often it's very European focused. Don't know what happening with RDA US, but at this point, the international group would be a way to continue the discussion and really broaden it into earth science especially. So that's a thought.
Hi, Madison Langseth, USGS. So I think these are a lot of really great ideas, but how do we make them actionable? So like some of us are in a position where we teach courses, or not me personally, and you can start thinking about how do you incorporate this, but a lot of us don't. And so I think it's important for us to think about, are there actions that we can take personally? And I think there's a big social component here. Unlike one of those was going to those meetings and talking to people. And I think that's going to be a big part of this, is we need to start making those connections. So I don't know that writing a report is going to get us where we want to be. I think it's going to be, we all need to take actions to talk to people.
Yeah. Yeah, Kathy online said collecting a list of non-university presenters could be really useful for university faculty. So I think kind of related to what you're saying, Madison.
Just quick follow-up to Nancy's, because RDA also have two interest groups. One is on the education and the capacity development, so specifically on the FAIR and the data management in general. And then the other one is the early career a working group or interest group. So really focusing on what's the things can support early career, so that can be really incorporated into some grad school related things.
Awesome. Oh, one last one. Okay.
Yeah. I wonder if this is an opportunity to connect this community to the librarian communities through Digital Library Federation and some of the other communities of practice too.
Awesome. Thank you, Bob. All right. I think we're out of time, unfortunately. I'll continue to discuss, continue to innovate, provocate, and thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, online people.
Thank you. Bye-bye.